All right, so thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you, Astrid, for organizing this. It's really an honor for me to be here to talk to a packed audience. And so before I start, I just want to introduce myself. I'm the director of the Confucius Institute here based at Lancaster University, and also a professor of international business in the management school. And I arrived here in 2014 after many years in different European countries. And my hometown is Shanghai, so if you haven't been there, I would recommend you to visit my hometown. It's fantastic. And however, today I want to talk a little bit about China, about the future of China. Obviously, it's very difficult to predict futures. And also talk about China, which China are you talking about? Because China, as its concept itself, is actually very hard to define, and we have different interpretations. However, some people did try to predict about China. Among them, Napoleon, of course, the great emperor of France. So he said, actually, on a number of occasions about China. First, he said when he was a bit younger, then he said it on the island of St. Helena. But basically, if you combine what he said throughout his lifetime, he basically said, China is a sleeping giant, or a lion, We shouldn't wake her up, we should let her sleep. Because as soon as she wakes up, she will shake the world. And if we say more than 200 years later, the president of China, Xi Jinping, went to Paris to celebrate the 50 years of diplomatic relation between China and France. What he said, today the lion has woken up, but it's peaceful, pleasant, and civilized. Obviously, that's his interpretation. You may have a different version about what lion should behave or shouldn't, but anyway. But you can see the interesting historical analysis of China. So obviously, it shows that China is a very important player, was a very important player. And it's often easy to ignore the importance of China in ancient times. Because if you look at the global economy for the 18th of the last 20th century, China played a very significant role, if not the largest actor in the world in terms of economic dominance. It's the 18th and 19th century, or 19th and 20th century China was left out. What a lot of scholars would say the century of humiliation for China after the Opium War to the UK. Imagine China nowadays. China is a concept you will find everywhere in international media, in conferences, in all sorts of debates. Okay, and if you look at global media, are also very keen on China. So here I just took 3 media: The Economist. So apparently that's how China sees the world nowadays. Astrid will talk a little bit later about the Tianxia system. But again, that's how China saw the world historically. It's being interpreted how China, again, is this kind of Sino-centric, China-centric viewpoint of the world. China middle of the world, while we can see Europe and the United States are not significant. Because in historical contexts, China sees its distant neighbors as barbarians. And we also see this picture by the Financial Times. Again, you can see China is becoming kind of the strong nation in the world with the largest foreign currency reserve in the world, a very important economic player. So, especially while other countries were suffering from the economic crisis in the 2008 and onwards. And this picture, it's very funny because I take this picture because today is a very special night, right? I'm very glad you came here instead of spending time with your partners. So, congratulations. So today is the Valentine's Day. However, in China we also have our own Valentine's Day. But it's not either the Western or the Chinese Valentine. The biggest Valentine celebration in China is on which day? The 12th of December. Oh. Because that's the couple's day. 12/12. And the Singles Day in China is the 11th of November, because it's only 1/1/1/1. So it's very important, okay? So don't celebrate Valentine's, celebrate on 12th. If you forgot to buy a present, you will say you will buy it on 12th of December. You have plenty of time to prepare. But I guess what you see here is China is being very commercialized, right? It's a communist party country, authoritarian state, but it's hugely commercialized. You see major brands, corporations everywhere in China. Even the traditional Chinese Valentine Festival is flooded with commercialization. So these are just some popular images of China. Then we talk a bit about the economy. The Chinese economy has done very successfully in the past 4 decades or so. The whole economic reform started in the late 80s with Deng Xiaoping's opening up, opening door for foreign investment, for special economic zones, etc. And at that time, he was heavily criticized because his party members were saying that how could you undertake a capitalist economic activities in a communist China? They are just totally not compatible. What Deng Xiaoping said, he said, whether it's a black cat or a white cat, meaning capitalism or communism, as long as the cat catches the mouse, that's a good cat. So it doesn't matter whether it's a capitalist system or a communist system, as long as the system works. It should be a good system that we should use. And obviously, because of the economic reform, we can see the Chinese economy has taken a rapid growth. And we can see already a few years ago, in terms of the purchasing power parity, China is the largest economy in the world. PPP means that you take into consideration of the living cost, the cost of food, etc. So the real economy power. However, the total GDP, the US is still the the world's largest economy. And we also can see that the growth rate is changing. China has enjoyed a miraculous double-digit growth, growth higher than 10%. However, in recent years, we can see the Chinese economy is slowing down. Many people say that will lead to a crash of the Chinese economy. Some people say it's nothing to worry because the total size of the economy is much larger than 20 years ago. So you can't always have double-digit growth. So even growth at 7–8%, that's already much bigger than double-digit growth in the past. So the government is calling that the new normal economy or new economic growth model, meaning that it's more balanced approach rather than this fast growth that we have experienced in the past years. How China changed the world? I say it's already changing the world. It's already changing our everyday life. A few years ago, an American author wrote a book. She attempted to write a year without made in China. So what she did is she tried to avoid buying anything which is made in China. Okay, just everything should be made in the US or elsewhere. But what she discovered that the more she tried to avoid things made in China, the more she discovered things actually made in China she didn't even realize. So obviously it's not that successful. And obviously, we already know there are some major Chinese brands like Huawei, like Alibaba, these shopping online commerce. But there are also a lot of companies that are being gradually bought by Chinese. China merger and acquisition overseas is an area that is receive a lot of attention. So all these brands, whether it's Volvo, whether it's IBM, or the latest GE appliance, are being bought by Chinese as major shareholder. Even some infrastructure like the Toulouse airport is now receiving the majority share from China. And currently, there's an interesting takeover on majority share with the Chicago Stock Exchange, which has just been received approval for being bought by a Chinese group of investors. So it's already shaping the world we live in. It's already shaping our everyday life, whether it's the car we're driving, the mobile phone we use, the jeans you are wearing, etc. So China goes global. Yes, traditionally China has been a country received FDI. That's why a lot of the multinationals went to China for the cheap labor, for the market. However, what happened in the last 10 years, China is going global. The government calls this go global strategy, meaning pushing Chinese companies to go internationally. It's for economic reasons, but also for the public image. China wants to show its global implication. So we can see that the investment from China is increasing very rapidly, okay? And actually now the outflowed FDI, so the money goes from China already is higher than the money going to China. So China is a net contributor to the global FDI. And we see Europe is a continent which has been receiving a lot of the FDI from China. Although China is not the largest investor in Europe, but the growth is the highest. And if we look at the growth trend, obviously UK is the #1 FDI destination for China, for Europe from China. And much is obviously to do with the financial sector in London, which has received very high profile investment, but also in the real estate in other areas. Germany is #2. in Europe to receive that. So the growth is growing very high. In 2015, the growth was 44% more than the year before. So very rapid increase. And one case alone, the Italian tire maker, the case to take over by Chinese, was already more than 7 billion euros. Some other countries in Europe are receiving very high level of Chinese investment. A small country, Luxembourg, you probably wouldn't think, it's also one of the major destinations to receive FDI. Again, that's to do with the financial services sector. While the Eastern European country is more into commodity exchange and small business. So, obviously, I've shown you that the Chinese economic power, the trade, investment is being felt in the world. What we also see, China is moving gradually into the global governance, global economic governance, political affairs, environmental issues, all these multilateral global affairs. Deng Xiaoping once said that we should 韬光养晦, meaning that we have to keep a low profile and hiding our brightness. Because in that way, you can focus on your economic development and leave the dirty work to other nations, like US, Russia, for them. Because the more you do, the probably can take more blame, But if you keep a low profile, you can focus on economic development. And that has resulted a lot in the foreign policy for Chinese decision makers. So they have started two, let's say, very major kind of principles. The first principle we call is non-interference. So we do not interfere domestic issues in other countries. So we will not go to Iraq to do to solve Iraqi's problems, because that's their domestic issues. Okay, we don't interfere. And obviously that's a major reason, is because China has also domestic issues like Taiwan, Tibet. They don't want other foreign nations to interfere. And secondly is peaceful development, is to say that we want to have a peaceful environment for Asia, so countries can develop economically, etc. So it's very much this kind of ethos China was developing. However, China is changing. We can see the different roles the Chinese government has undertook. They have been listening to the international order. They have learned about how to play diplomacy. They have followed the rules. But currently, they're also reforming these rules. They're changing it, and they're also making them. And I will give you an example later, how they have changed their roles in international decision-making. However, we can see before 2004, they are still being a bit passive. They are still more opinion-giving and rather than agenda-setting. But this is changing, particularly with the new leadership. There are different reasons, for this changing leadership. First of all, these leaders, they need to demonstrate the legitimacy of the Chinese Communist Party. They want to demonstrate they are more committed to economic development, but they also want to protect China's interest, okay? Because China has interests worldwide now. Look at the pirates of Somali could impact on China's trading routes. So this is very important, the peaceful. But it's also China is very conscious about its image in the world. China would like to be seen as a country with growing responsibilities, and also to satisfy the domestic audience. The nationalism is growing. And an external is the timing of development. I will not go through details here. I will go through a bit later, probably to do with the question of the basic meaning that China wants to set up its own rules of the game in order to protect its own interest. So the President Xi, he was in the headlines just after the New Year because he was the first time a Chinese president went to Davos and to speak. That's really contrary to the US president, make America first. Then China went to Davos to say, we don't want to be the first, we want to make the whole world first. So he is the most traveled Chinese leader so far. In the 4 years in his term, he has made numerous trips, much more than any other leaders before him. And what he has done, one of the major contributions he has done is what so-called the One Belt, One Road policy, which he put forward in 2013 in the conference in Kazakhstan. And then what he said is, we should have more connectivity. Connectivity is the key for regional growth, for international trade. So what he wants is to build a land-based route across Central Asia all the way to Europe, and a maritime trading route from China through Southeast Asia Africa, again to Europe. So infrastructure development, pipelines, fiber optics, policy coordination, and obviously financial institutions like the ARIB, which the UK was the first Western European country to join, was a major statement for China's support. So why do they want to do it? Obviously, that's a Chinese narrative, a very important Chinese narrative, to say the ancient Silk Road was a very peaceful one. Of course, that's sometimes debated. I'm sure Astrid will have some other stories. But it's viewed as a Chinese story. That, now we are revisiting the history, revisiting this historical trading route to make the world connected again. And you can see that's Admiral Zheng bringing giraffe from Africa to China. But there are some other reasons. Economic is a major consideration because China has a lot of overcapacity, cement production, manufacturing of certain products. So how do you deal with that? The world demand is shrinking. How do you sustain this industry? So by helping infrastructure development abroad, China could use some of this overcapacity to develop abroad. So economic consideration is very important. There's also financial consideration. China's RMB is being internationalized. So the whole One Belt, One Road will help China to further internationalize its RMB. If you look at the trading nations, major trading nations, China already has 120 countries which have China as the largest trading partner. Only 60 countries are having the US as their largest trading partner. So you can imagine there are more countries primarily trading with China than the US. And RMB is currently about 15% of transactions. So you have a lot of deals that are being done in Chinese yuan rather than the US dollars. For instance, the Gazprom and Chinese National Petroleum deal, they're done already direct in yuan. And some Chinese currency reserve is being done in some other places outside China. London, for instance, is a very important issue. Obviously, with Brexit, that may have an impact. And it's also an international reserve currency, but very interestingly, the Chinese electronic payment system, UnionPay, you probably have seen it in some local shops. They are already being accepted. It's the third largest electronic payment system in the world, overtaking American Express already. So you can see that's all coming through the Chinese economic power. So obviously, the One Belt One Road will push further. Then there's also geopolitical consideration. China wants to assert its geopolitical power, particularly in Central Asia, which is very important, but also in Africa, which is very important places. Especially in the previous administration of Obama, the Asia pivot system was very much viewed in China as a way to contain China in Asia Pacific. So China would like to develop the other system to work with the rest of the world. And the maritime Silk Road was important because there's over-reliance on the Strait of Malacca, and obviously US has strong control over there. So there are a lot of geopolitical consideration. So is it all too good to be true? Obviously, there are a lot of noises. If you go to Hungary, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, they're all very excited because that means they could have an opportunity that Europe once promised them. So they're all very excited. However, there's also a lot of suspicion, okay? I was talking to some leaders in Central Asia. They say they are working with Chinese, but they don't trust Chinese or Russia because they still have a lot of concerns that, they are too big, they are hegemonic. So the confidence and the credibility is a major issue here. There's also a knowledge deficit. There are very little interest from China or young Chinese to know about Russia, Central Asia, or Africa. You see how many Chinese students are studying here, how many are studying in Moscow now. It was once a very popular destination, but not anymore. So there's a knowledge deficit. And obviously, I also written some Russian songs because these are, in the past, there are a lot of knowledge about Russia, about Soviet, but that kind of knowledge shortage is missing. And obviously, Russia has suspicions over China. I often joke these are the partners in necessity rather than partners who are very passionate about each other. And then it could be a war of infrastructures. We already see that some other countries, since China led the OBO, they also started their own infrastructure development notably Japan. Japan has now increased hugely its overseas aid in Africa, also developing infrastructure. So do we need a country to compete with another, or do we need a coordinated measure? Track two. Track two is non-governmental dialogues. We also need bottom-up approach in these kind of major projects. Chinese government is very good with top-down approach, but bottom-up from a civil society is very important. So that leads to the question, how flexible can China be? Okay, China is taking a greater role in the world now, but can China still focus on its previous approach or not? That's a question mark. So I will stop here. So thank you very much, and I wish you all of you a very happy New Year of the Rooster. Thank you.